Welcome to Hard Script.
She screamed it like a weapon. My body, my rules. The echo of it bounced off the kitchen walls, but I didn't flinch. I just stood there, watching her calm. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't ask for clarity. Because in that moment, everything became clear. I just walked. No door slam. No parting shot. No explanation. And that silence, that moment where I removed myself from the chaos, was the exact second her world began to crumble. But she didn't know it yet. Not that night. That night, she was sure she'd won. Her face didn't show regret. It showed relief, like she finally drew a boundary she thought would make me stay and fight. But I didn't stay, and I didn't fight. Because when someone throws a line like that at you, sharp, rehearsed, loaded, they're not trying to solve anything. They're trying to dominate the moment, to own the narrative. I left her with it. And the next day, she found out what it really meant to be alone in a space you thought you controlled. Let me explain how we got there. Her name was Claire. We'd been together for almost 3 years. The kind of relationship that started fast and burned hotter than it should have. She was magnetic, confident, stunning, the kind of woman who could make a room stop moving just by walking in. But Claire had one rule: control the tempo. She set the pace, the boundaries, the tone, and I followed. Until I didn't. The last few months had been tense. Conversations turned into debates. Debates turned into silence. And silence became punishment. Her affection was currency. Her presence, conditional. But I endured it because I thought that's what love meant. Patience, flexibility, compromise. Turns out, I was just excusing disrespect dressed as independence. And the night it snapped was over something simple. Dinner. She'd been out late, again. I'd cooked, waited, texted, no reply. When she walked in, all glossed up and acting cold, I finally asked what was going on. Not accusing, just honest. That's when it happened. She exploded. Through the line. Like a grenade in the middle of a quiet room. My body, my rules. I didn't ask about her body. I asked where we stood. But she didn't hear that. She needed a moment of dominance. What she didn't realize was that moment became the fracture. And while she slept comfortably that night, I was already erasing my presence. Clearing drawers. Logging out of joint accounts. Canceling reservations for next month's trip. She thought she'd thrown a punch. But all she did was hand me permission to vanish. And the next day, when she reached for me, I was gone. And what she found in my absence shattered her more than any argument ever could. The thing about silence is it doesn't hit right away. When I left that night, Claire didn't chase me. She didn't even check if the door closed behind me. I think part of her believed I'd be back by morning, that I'd cool off, crawl back, beg for connection on her terms. She was wrong. When she woke up, the first thing she noticed was the closet. My half, empty. Shirt's gone. No shoes. The leather belt she always borrowed during her rush hour panic? Gone too. She opened the drawer I used to keep my watch, passport, headphones in. Empty. That's when the shift started. Because men like me don't threaten. We move. Quietly. Strategically. Entirely. While she slept off her power trip, I was up deleting shared playlists, removing shared access from our cloud storage, and logging out of the home security app. I didn't need cameras in that place anymore. I wasn't protecting her space. I was reclaiming mine. I didn't block her. I just disconnected her. She texted by noon. A casual "where are you?" No apology. No reflection. Just a breadcrumb meant to pull me back into the orbit. I didn't answer. At 2 p.m., she called. Once. No voicemail. Then again, an hour later. Then the text shifted. Are you ignoring me now? So this is how you handle conflict? Wow. Still no apology. No responsibility. Just ego. Hurt, confused ego. She wasn't reaching out because she missed me. She was spiraling because I broke the pattern. I was always the one to fix things, even when I didn't break them. But this time, I fixed myself. I checked into a short-term rental on the other side of town. A small place, just one bedroom, clean kitchen, no memories. It felt like breathing after months underwater. That evening, I ordered food for one and turned off my phone. Let her sit with the quiet. Let her feel what it was like when the man who always stayed stopped showing up. My brother texted the next morning. Claire showed up at my place. Looking for you. Of course she did. Not because she wanted to talk, but because she wanted control. She couldn't handle that the guy who once held her through breakdowns, cooked her breakfast, and forgave her cold spells was suddenly unreachable. Not blocked, just removed. And when someone loses access not through anger, but through indifference, it cuts deeper. Because there's nothing to fight against. Only absence. And that morning, in a house we once called home, Claire finally saw what it looked like when I wasn't just silent. I was gone. I didn't check her messages for days. Not because I was trying to punish her, but because I'd stopped needing to know what she thought. And that was the most dangerous realization for someone like Claire. She thrived on emotional currency. The highs, the tension, the tears. If she could keep you reacting, she could keep you orbiting her world. But when I stopped reacting, her control turned into panic. By the third day, she sent a voice message. I didn't play it, just deleted it. The only thing I needed to hear was silence, and I already had plenty of that. What she never understood was that her final outburst wasn't a shock. It was the confirmation. The truth is, my body, my rules wasn't a declaration of independence. It was a deflection. I wasn't asking for her body. I was asking for honesty, commitment, partnership. But she knew if she made it about control, she could shut me down without answering the real question. Who was she really with that night? Because deep down, I already knew. The way she came home, half distracted, perfumed up, detached, it wasn't just a bad mood. It was distance. Physical, emotional, psychological. I was just the last to admit it. And when I did, I didn't announce it. I moved like a man who's done explaining. Not in anger. In clarity. I started making decisions without hesitation. Unlinked my bank card from our shared streaming accounts. Called the landlord. Let him know I was vacating early. Told him the lease was in her name anyway. He just nodded. Said, "Good luck, man." Didn't need luck. Just resolve. And once the logistics were handled, the healing started. I reconnected with my father, someone I hadn't spoken to much since Claire insisted he was too opinionated. Turns out, he was just observant. He always said, "A woman who wants control over everything will never build anything with you. She'll build everything for herself and let you carry it." I used to brush that off. Now I saw exactly what he meant. She hadn't just wanted independence. She wanted to win. Every argument, every decision, every room. And when I took away the audience, she lost the stage. My silence was no longer just a break from the noise. It became the boundary. And from that moment on, I decided one thing with full certainty. I would never again negotiate my worth with someone who used love as leverage. Claire thought I'd come back once she softened. But some bridges don't burn. They dissolve. And the road behind me, gone. By the end of that week, Claire wasn't angry anymore. She was afraid. Not of me. I'd never been the type to raise my voice or slam doors. No, this fear was different. It was the kind of fear that creeps in when the audience leaves and the performance no longer matters. She had no one to perform for. Her text slowed down, but the tone changed. It wasn't rage or pride anymore. It was confusion, then desperation. "Can we just talk?" I didn't mean it like that. I thought you'd understand. But understanding comes with trust. And once you break that, there's nothing left to explain. That Friday, I bumped into her friend Emily at a coffee shop near my new place. Emily froze when she saw me. The kind of freeze people do when they realize you're not supposed to look this calm after being discarded. She blinked twice, then forced a smile. "You look different." I didn't respond. Just gave her a nod and went back to my laptop. But before she walked off, she dropped the line I knew would come eventually. "She's not doing well, you know." I didn't even look up, because I wasn't responsible for her undoing. She lit the match. I just didn't stay to inhale the smoke. People like Claire rely on recovery teams. Friends who rally, spin the story, paint her as misunderstood. But the longer I stayed silent, the less she could control the narrative. Her world wasn't shattering because I left. It was shattering because no one believed her version of why. That's what happens when you scream in power but fall apart in solitude. She told people I ghosted her. But the receipts didn't lie. Screenshots of our arguments. Bank statements. Date-stamped calendar invites. Photos of empty drawers. Proof that I didn't ghost her. I freed myself from a cage she kept decorating. Meanwhile, I started reconnecting with who I was before her. I got back into boxing. Quiet mornings at the gym. No texts. No drama. Just discipline. Started eating clean again. Even signed up for a weekend hiking group. Not to find someone else, but to remember how silence could be strength, not punishment. Claire thought I'd vanished temporarily. What she didn't realize was that I wasn't lost. I was removing. Systematically. Completely. And when someone removes themselves without warning, without explanation, without giving you something to fight back against, you're left in a house built on silence. And for the first time in her life, Claire wasn't the one walking away. She was the one watching the door close. And this time, it didn't reopen. Claire always assumed control was about volume. Who could talk louder, stand taller, win more arguments? But control isn't noise. It's presence. And I had taken mine with me. That weekend, she showed up at my gym. She must have heard about it through someone, maybe Emily. She stood outside the front door, arms crossed like she was waiting for an apology. She didn't get one. I walked right past her. Didn't stop. Didn't blink. Just nodded at the trainer and stepped into the ring. She didn't follow me inside. Because people like Claire need you in a setting they control. They can't manipulate in a room where your focus isn't on them. I went 3 rounds with a guy twice my size that day. Every hit reminded me of how far I'd come. Every drop of sweat felt like a layer of her falling off. By the time I walked back out, she was gone. That night, the texts started again. Longer now. More emotional. You don't even care, do you? You can't just erase someone like this. I was hurt. I felt like you didn't see me. But here's the truth. I did see her. Too clearly. That was the problem. I saw how she twisted affection into leverage. I saw how she weaponized her past pain to justify new damage. I saw how every boundary I tried to set was framed as an attack. And now, stripped of the emotional battlefield, she had nowhere to strike. I wasn't just gone from her home. I was gone from her grip. She tried reaching out to my mother, called my cousin, even messaged my ex. Yes, my ex, asking if I always run when things get tough. But I wasn't running. I was done playing dead to keep someone else comfortable. I started keeping a journal that week. Not for reflection, for record. Because men like me, we don't speak much when we're in it. But when we leave, we remember everything. And the silence isn't just absence. It's a statement. It says, I don't need to prove anything anymore. Claire thought the worst thing I could do was yell. She never imagined the worst thing would be me walking away and never looking back. Because when a man rebuilds without you, he doesn't leave gaps for you to crawl back through. He fills them with new focus, new people, new peace. And once that peace becomes familiar, your chaos is just noise in the distance. Echoing, unanswered. Claire always had a gift for rebranding reality. She could take a moment of cruelty and reframe it as passion. An insult became honesty. Her silence, self-care. So it didn't surprise me when I started hearing whispers through mutual friends. She's really been struggling. She says you ghosted her during a hard time. She told people you were controlling. I didn't respond. Because when someone's story depends on distorting yours, they're not seeking truth. They're seeking sympathy. But sympathy doesn't come when your actions finally catch up to your image. And now, with me gone, the mirror she'd been avoiding had no one else to reflect. She was forced to see what was left when the projection ended. And what was left wasn't pretty. I heard she tried dating someone new, quickly. That part made sense. People like Claire need a stage, a fresh audience, someone who hasn't seen behind the curtain yet. But the cracks showed early. He didn't play by her rules, didn't chase her moods, didn't tolerate the hot and cold routine. Within 3 weeks, he was out. And the messages to me started again, this time cloaked in nostalgia. Do you remember that night we slow danced in the kitchen? I still wear your hoodie sometimes. I miss the way you made me feel safe. But here's the thing. The past only feels warm when the present is cold. She didn't miss me. She missed who she could be with me. Because I never competed with her. Never tried to own her. I just wanted a partner. And for someone like her, that was never enough. She needed to be adored, obeyed, feared, not loved equally. And when that fear didn't come, when I stopped reacting, she lost her power. But I didn't gloat, didn't screenshot the messages, didn't expose her. I had nothing to prove. Because the strongest move a man can make isn't retaliation. It's rejection of the entire battlefield. I had a new apartment now, not huge, but peaceful. Mornings with black coffee and sunlight instead of tension and walking on eggshells. Nights filled with silence. Not the weaponized kind Claire used to wield, but the real kind. The kind that heals you from the inside out. And as I laid there some nights, phone face down, not vibrating, not lighting up with her chaos, I realized something powerful. She didn't shatter when I left. She shattered because I didn't return. Because some people aren't afraid of being alone. They're afraid of not being able to pull you back. And once that fear becomes real, the illusion collapses. Completely. I used to believe silence meant weakness. When Claire would freeze me out after an argument, I'd fall into panic mode, sending messages, apologizing for things I didn't do, begging for resolution just to feel peace again. But now, silence was my sanctuary. Because the difference was this: her silence was a tactic. Mine was a decision. By now, she had run through every phase: denial, anger, guilt, nostalgia. But none of them brought me back. And what do people like Claire do when their patterns stop working? They escalate. She showed up at my office. I saw her from the glass doors, standing at reception, rehearsed posture, eyes darting like she wasn't sure if she'd made a mistake or a move of desperation. My assistant walked in, hesitant. "She's here. Says it's urgent." I didn't even lift my head. "Tell her I'm in a meeting. Indefinitely." And that was the truth. I was in a meeting with the version of me I lost trying to keep her stable. And that conversation? It wasn't ending anytime soon. She left. No scene, no drama. But I knew that would be the last attempt. Because once they realize the stage is closed for good, even the most persistent performers leave. That night, I sat on the balcony of my apartment, the city buzzing below. The same city we used to walk through like some perfect couple people admired. But perfection isn't partnership. And attention isn't intimacy. I remembered how she once told me, "You're too calm. It makes me feel like I'm not getting through to you." Back then, I took that as a flaw. Now I saw it for what it was, a fear. Because when a man becomes calm, it means he's no longer fighting for you. He's fighting within himself to move on. And I'd won that fight already. I started planning a trip, just me, no agenda. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere far from the noise, from the memories, from anything that ever tried to convince me I wasn't enough. As I packed, I found one last thing, an old note she'd left in my jacket pocket a year ago. It read, "You're the only person who never gave up on me." And now, I had. Not out of hate, but out of necessity. Because the hardest truth I ever had to accept was this: you can love someone completely and still know they're not capable of loving you the same way. And when that truth finally lands, there's only one thing left to do: disappear. Without a sound. Without a trace. Without regret. The morning I left the city, I didn't tell anyone. No goodbye texts. No cryptic posts. No trail of breadcrumbs. Just a one-way ticket, a packed duffel, and a full tank of silence. Claire used to say, "You always have one foot out the door." She thought that made her the strong one. She didn't realize it was her voice that trained me to be ready to walk. Not because I wanted to leave, but because I knew I couldn't stay forever in a war zone disguised as a relationship. I drove for hours. No music, just road and thought. And with every mile, I felt the weight she left in me dissolve. Not all at once, but piece by piece. That kind of damage doesn't scream. It releases quietly, like tension finally exiting the room. I settled in a coastal town, somewhere no one would think to look. No friends. No shared memories. No places where her scent still lingered in the air. Just ocean, salt, and space. The first night, I stood by the water for hours. Not searching, just breathing. And for the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't reacting to anything. Not a mood. Not a comment. Not a silence used as punishment. Just stillness. I'd brought a new phone. New number. Old one turned off, tucked in a drawer in case I ever needed it for anything legal, but I never checked it again. Her messages could stack up like bricks. They weren't reaching me. I didn't block her out of pettiness. I blocked her out because I had to protect my future from her past. She had trained me to be alert, always waiting for the next storm. But here, there were no storms. Only tide. Only clarity. I joined a local gym. Not to be social, but to stay focused. Started volunteering at a youth center on weekends. Helped kids who'd grown up in chaos learn how to process it without becoming it. And in those faces, I saw versions of myself. Boys who thought silence meant they weren't worth fighting for. But silence, I told them, wasn't the enemy. It was the turning point. Claire thought her last words would haunt me. My body, my rules. But it wasn't her body I ever tried to own. It was our future I was trying to build, one she was too wounded to share. And now, she wasn't in control of anything. Not the narrative. Not the silence. Not me. Because the loudest goodbye I ever gave was the one I never spoke. A few weeks after my move, I got a message from an old coworker. Not on my phone, on the volunteer center's shared inbox. It was vague, just a heads up. Claire's spiraling. Just thought you should know. I stared at the email for a moment, then archived it without replying. Because I didn't need to know. Whatever fall she was going through, it wasn't mine to catch. The version of me who once would have rushed back, who thought her chaos was a sign of depth, not dysfunction, was gone. Buried under late-night breakdowns and morning-after apologies that never meant anything. But I did learn something in those years with her. People don't collapse because you leave. They collapse because they never built anything real within themselves. Claire's identity had been curated. A highlight reel built for attention, admiration, control. But when I pulled out, when I stopped feeding it, the lights cut off. The audience left. And she was alone. I heard she tried reconnecting with her father, the one she hadn't spoken to in years. That didn't last. Same patterns. Same blame. Then it was a job change. Then therapy. Then another man. But none of it held. Because healing isn't about moving on fast. It's about sitting in what you created and owning it. And Claire had never owned anything but her own narrative. One where she was always the one being abandoned, never the one pushing people away. Meanwhile, I had found rhythm. Peace wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. It was waking up without dread, drinking coffee on a quiet porch, taking long walks without having to check my tone, my timing, or my phone. It was finally remembering who I was before I made her the center of everything. I found new friends, real ones, people who didn't require me to shrink to be accepted. Started writing again. Just short things, memories, ideas, observations. Not for anyone else. Just for me. And in one of those entries, I wrote, "You don't escape a person like Claire. You escape the version of yourself that tolerated her." Because that's the truth they never talk about. The real danger isn't them. It's who you become trying to survive them. And once you walk away from that, really walk, with no lingering guilt, no unanswered questions, no backdoor open, they don't just lose you. They lose the ability to pretend they ever had control. And that's what shatters them. Not your anger. Your absence. Months passed. I never reached out. Not once. No late-night scroll through her profile. No wondering if she changed. No urge to ask, why? Because I already knew the answer. And that's the final shift. When you stop asking questions that don't deserve answers. I was walking back from the market one afternoon when I saw a message request pop up on my new number. Unknown sender. No name. Just 5 words. "You really forgot me, huh?" I didn't open it. Didn't need to. I knew the tone. Knew the panic wrapped in false confidence. Knew the way people like Claire dress up desperation and sarcasm. She hadn't changed. But I had. She used to say, "You always think leaving solves everything." She was wrong. Leaving doesn't solve everything. But it solves enough. It clears the fog. It resets your nervous system. It forces you to see what you were too wrapped up to recognize before. That love without respect is performance, not partnership. I never responded. Because responding would have reopened something I'd already buried. Not with hate. Not with revenge. With closure. The kind you give yourself when the apology never comes. When the explanation is a dead end. When peace finally outweighs the pull of chaos. And maybe that's what destroyed her. Not the fact that I left, but that I left well. No breakdown. No drunken texts. No scorched earth. Just gone. Replaced by a man she couldn't reach, couldn't guilt, couldn't manipulate with the same tricks that worked before. She used to weaponize silence. Now it was turned on her, not by force, but by choice. And it echoed louder than anything I ever said. Because some endings don't need fireworks. They just need distance. And clarity. And the strength to never look back. Even when curiosity whispers that you should. So I stood there, phone in hand, wind brushing off the ocean, and I did something she never could. I let go. Fully. Not of a person. Of the need to be understood by someone incapable of understanding herself. I went back inside. Unpacked my groceries. Made dinner in silence. sat on my porch as the sun dropped over the horizon. And right then, in the quiet, in the stillness, in the absolute absence of her, I felt it. Peace, not as a moment, as a state, permanent, untouchable, final. Because when a man stops explaining, stops chasing, stops proving, he doesn't just walk away. He vanishes. And in that silence, she finally heard everything she tried so hard to ignore. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.